Hello, my friends. Welcome to Lindy's Magpie Reads. This is a place where I talk about books, and I normally record once a week. I post on Fridays, but tomorrow, Thursday, my sweetie and I are going to be traveling to Edmonton for an extended long weekend, getting together with friends for various occasions. I'll tell you more about that next week. So I am recording this on a Wednesday. I guess I'll call it a recent reads. Still, I have read 6 books, which I will tell you about shortly. And what else? The bookish adventures that I've had in the past week have been attending Planet Earth Poetry, poetry reading and open mic series that happens at Russell Books. And the most recent one featured Eslyn McPhee, a queer writer that I started reading their collection and am really enjoying it. So more next week. And also another queer writer, the lesbian Arleen Paré. I did finish this one, and I will tell you all about it shortly. Yesterday, I had a visit from a subscriber, a longtime subscriber. She was here in Victoria with her wife, so lovely to get together with bookish people. I love the connections with people that I've made on this channel. Thank you, everybody, for watching and for commenting. Okay, onto the books. There are 2 here by queer authors. I've got 3 that are for Misery May. This is the booktube reading event that's hosted by Gemma of Gem of Books and Scott of Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. And I will link their channels below. Okay, onto the books, starting with Encrypted. Arleen Paré has now written, I think, 10 collections of poetry. She's won numerous awards and been shortlisted many times. She's a fantastic writer. This collection, it's all in response to a personal situation. So in 2020, her grandson came to Victoria to study at university and moved into her basement. She and her wife, they've been together for over 40 years. Anyway, she was very happy that he moved in with them. But shortly after, I think, he had just started taking this program, and he became really depressed and had anxiety and started spending most of his time indoors in the basement in his room. And of course, she was really concerned about him. And she said when she was talking about this book at Planet Earth Poetry, she said that writing about this situation helped lessen her own anxiety. So, I think that's one of the things about Misery May is, why do we want to read books that have misery in them? If you've experienced that situation of caring about a loved one who is experiencing mental health difficulties, you will be able to relate so much to this. I'll just read you the opening lines. You have made of yourself a door, a plain, standard, hollow core, white painted door, handled and hinged. Door. When the wind died down, all the leaves, which 3 days before spun yellow against the ecstatic blue sky, lay in disorder over the ground. Science claims no energy can be created, neither can vigor be fully destroyed. At rest, the hinge on the door makes no noise. It functions, as does the handle, as does the latch, to keep the door closed. Your silence a verb? As a child, you preferred rooms to trees to the sky. As a child, you could solve all the puzzles that you placed on the floor, knowing then how all the pieces would fit. And it goes on. Encrypted. It's outstanding. Loved it. Now, May is also a short story month in Canada, and I don't think I read any short stories this month, which is unusual for me. So I was really happy when my library hold for the audiobook of Alexis, his new collection, Other Worlds, came in. I downloaded it, started listening to it, and what a disappointment. Not because of Alexis. Tell me if you've experienced this. It was a different audiobook. So, the cover image that I could see in Libby was correct. When I looked at the contents, I could see a list of short stories, including one that I had read as a standalone, Winter or A Town Near Palgrave. When I went to that particular short story, the audio recording was Chapter 4, Can I Do It? When you learn new things, neurons connect in the brain. So the actual audiobook content was a book by Gregory M. Walton called Ordinary Magic, The Science of How We Can Achieve Big Change with Small Acts. And it's a self-improvement book. Not what I wanted. So I returned it, and I decided to go and listen to a sample. And the sample was actual Alexis short story. So there is only one digital copy of the audiobook in the library's Libby database. I put myself back on the waiting list, hoping that maybe it was just a download error. I don't know. But because I returned it and put myself back on the list, there are now a whole bunch of people ahead of me, estimated 18 weeks before I get it again. And fingers crossed that it's actually going to be the correct audiobook. We shall see. I listened to a couple of other audiobooks, including Uncommon Measures, subtitled A Journey Through Music, Performance, and the Science of Time. And it's by Natalie Hodges. The audiobook is read by Cindy Kay. I love her narration. Natalie is a Korean-American violinist. She's writing about performance anxiety, among other things. The other things I found really unusual in a memoir. She's talking about music and neuroscience research, quantum physics, and these things actually very much apply to what she's writing and thinking about. Here's more about Natalie and her personal life. Her mother is a Korean immigrant, and her father is a white American. He was an abusive man who left the family. I can't remember how old Natalie was, maybe 12, but he had strict regulations for where and at what time Natalie could practice her violin. Her siblings were also very much into music. They weren't allowed to sing in the house whatsoever. Their father didn't attend their recitals. Well, maybe once in a while he did, but they could tell where he was in the audience because they would see the blue light of his phone. All he did was be on his phone. And he was really dismissive of their passion for studying music. And their mother also had been somebody who loved studying classical music. So he disparaged it as middle-class immigrant striving. So going back to quantum physics, Natalie writes about how scientists discovered that an electron can be in two places at one time, but measuring it fixes it in one place. And she writes that writing a book about linear time changes the past, if not the events themselves, then at least their meaning, our sense of how they happened and why. So for somebody who's interested in reading memoir, I think this is an interesting question for us as readers as well. And in the neuroscience part, she writes about entrainment and what happens in our brain with music. It is through entrainment that music allows us to break out of the quotidian rhythms of day-to-day time and thus to break out of ourselves. She also talks about a Venezuelan musician, Gabriela Montero, who is famous for her improvisation in a classical style. And the MRI studies that have been done of Montero and other musicians who are improvising and how it uses a different part of our brain than when playing something that you've learned by heart. Here's a quote I like. "Improvisation can be seen as an uncanny manifestation of deep memory itself, the creation of order out of disorder, a deep uppouring from some part of the soul." So at one point, Natalie was drawn to perform tango music. And so she decided to learn more about tango, the dance. And she was really surprised to learn that it's an improvisational form. I didn't know that either. So I've got one last quote from this audiobook. "Tango is a sad thought that we dance." So I'm going to chalk this one up for Misery May. Next up is another book for Misery May, and that is the novel An Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong, who is a gay Vietnamese poet and writer. His debut novel was On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. So this one, the central character is Hai, who's a Vietnamese American. He'd been raised by his mother. We don't know much about his father. He's 19 years old. He's suicidal. He has an addiction to pharmaceutical drugs. And things are not going well for him. But he meets an old woman, an 82-year-old Lithuanian immigrant, and the two of them become friends. Now, Grzina has the early stages of dementia, and so Hai ends up living with her and looking after her. he also has a job at a fast food restaurant. And the misfit kind of workers at this restaurant are a sort of found family. And he most definitely has a found family in the situation with Grazina as well. There is so much compassion and tenderness in this novel, as well as the realities of poverty in the US, that a lot of ordinary lives are lives of just getting by. But that is not such a bad thing if you have connection and community. Not necessarily enough money. There isn't that kind of security, but being okay, as it said in the book, sometimes better than happiness, because being okay has more of a chance of lasting. I found that there was quite a bit more humor in this book than in his previous books, and I really appreciate that. Grazina, for example, at one point tells him that he should be eating carrots. Roots prevent you from getting the blues. Carrots become bright orange because it's so dark in the ground. They make their own light because the sun never reaches that far. If you eat it, you take in the carrot's will to grow upward to heaven. Ever heard of a rabbit jumping off a bridge? Of course not. That's because they have the light in them. And Hai's grandmother, who's since died, but Hai remembers when he was younger, she liked to order from Pizza Hut because they were very thoughtful in providing you with a little tiny table that you could use to offer pizza to the ancestors and feed the spirits on their own little table. He runs into this guy, Randy, who liked making fun of him for reading books, since he believed, like a lot of folks in Wells Village, that reading is what schools force you to do, and that by the time you reach 18, you should be forever free from the tyranny of printed words. The place where this is set is a town or city in Connecticut. The neighborhood is right by the train tracks, and economic times have shifted, so this has become kind of a backwater. The train doesn't stop there anymore. I think that's a good tie to my next book, Cities Made Differently. This is by David Graeber and his wife, Nika Dubrovsky. David Graeber was an anthropologist and an activist. His wife, Nika, is an artist. Graeber died in 2020. I don't remember hearing about him before I picked up this book, but I've since found out that he's written a number of books, including Bullshit Jobs and Debt, a 5,000-year history. That one really interests me. I think I might like to pick that one up in the future. But after I bought this at the anarchist bookstore, Camus Books, a while back, I came across a quote by David Graeber in the book Life in Three Dimensions by Shigehiro Oishi. So, yeah, I think it's a sign that I should be reading more by David Graeber. This one is aimed at a teen audience in particular, but I think it's really suitable for probably junior high and up, and it is very visual. It depicts all kinds of cities from history and ideas from the future, ideas from literature, and questions like, would you trade your freedom for safety and comfort? And what do you consider safety? So it's very philosophical. Here's a quote from Alejandro Aravena. Care can be tender and loving, intrusive and insolvent, or even dismissive and murderous. Prisons also care about their prisoners. They feed and house them. Yet, is it possible to think about prisons as spaces of care? I love questions like that. And of course, I am particularly drawn to ideas, philosophies about reading. So, one more quote for you. The truly meaningful books are the ones that bring us together with other people. After all, if books don't change our lives, what are they good for? Oh, yeah. This one was a very slow read for me, only because I liked reading just a few pages at a time, a description of one city, and then thinking about it, reading other things, and then going back to it. And I will certainly be picking it up more in the future, so I'm glad that I have my own copy. Next up, I have a children's graphic novel, Next Stop by Debbie Fong. Debbie is a Taiwanese-American writer. She and cartoonist, so she uses full color. This is a kind of a flat, very simple line drawing, cartoony style. Our central character is Pia Singh, and she was supposed to go on a road trip to visit an amazing lake in a cavern in the desert with her dad. And at the last minute, he can't make it. So she's on this bus trip solo. But there's another girl her age whose mother is the tour guide on the bus. And the two become friends, but Pia also kind of becomes like part of the family of the people on the bus. And this sense of how friendship and community can really help us deal with life's challenges, because we find out Pia has been through a lot. Yes, there's a lot of misery in her life. And this is definitely a feel-good story. There are some fantastical elements in it. Things get stranger and stranger as they travel on through the desert. I loved it. It's great. And last up, Canadian graphic memoir by Teresa Wong, All Our Ordinary Stories. Teresa lives in Calgary. Her parents both emigrated from China, and although they spoke Cantonese at home, and Teresa grew up translating a lot for her parents, she never had the vocabulary for talking about feelings. It was always about, concrete things. In the opening of this memoir, her mother has had a stroke and then is depressed afterwards. And so this is an example of where Teresa just does not have the words. She doesn't know what to say. Are you hungry? I can cut some for you. I have no appetite. Do you want to nap? No, I haven't slept in weeks. Maybe try lying down anyway, just to rest. I don't want to live anymore. On the facing page, you see there's just 2 panels, and I love the way that this shows how isolated Teresa feels, and I'm sure her mother as well. There's that sense of how do we connect? That search for having a closer connection with her parents is a big part of all our ordinary stories. At one point she says, Ma, why don't you ever talk about escaping from China? And her mother says, what's there to say? Well, you swam to Hong Kong. And her mother responds, it's such an ordinary story. Ordinary? It's just what everybody did back then. Me, your dad, your cousin Kitwa, Dad, your friend Julie's mom. It's nothing unusual. Of course, it was. I can hardly imagine. And Teresa tries to get a better sense by reading memoirs like Wild Swans, learning more about her ancestors and what happened when they came to Canada during the time of the Chinese head tax and the long period of the exclusion of Chinese people from Canada, the racism that her family and ancestors have faced here in this country. I love this book with all my heart, and I highly recommend it. And that's all I've got for you today. So thank you very much for watching. Please let me know if you've read any books lately that you've felt were life-changing. I really want to hear about those. Please, even if you just want to say hi in the comments or leave me a flower emoji. Flowers are everywhere right now. I love this time of year. The flower of British Columbia is the Pacific dogwood, which is a flowering tree. And there's a tree on that nearby street that's a cultivar of it that has huge bracts on it. So I will show you that in the outro. There's also a wild rose here, the Nootka rose, that's quite different from the wild rose that's the provincial flower of Alberta, my home province, which is the prickly rose. The Nootka rose has such a strong scent and so many blossoms. I'll throw that one in as well into the outro. Thanks again for watching. I will see you all soon in the next one, and in the meantime, happy reading, everybody.